U.S. Representative Kevin McCarthy has been removed as Speaker in a historic vote.
The office of Speaker of the House of the United States House of Representatives is hereby declared vacant.
The House voted 216 to 210 to oust McCarthy, with 8 conservatives joining Democrats to remove him. Florida Republican Matt Gaetz led the efforts alongside a handful of hardline conservatives who have consistently voted against key priorities of GOP leadership and attempted to derail the Speaker's agenda. The decision is the first time in U.S. history the House has voted to remove its Speaker.
You can't do the job if 8 people, you have 94% of, or 96% of your entire conference, but 8 people can partner with the whole other side. How do you govern? And for them to make a motion on me because I made a decision for the country that they agreed with, but they choose to do the other, that becomes a problem.
Kevin McCarthy is a feature of the swamp. He has risen to power by collecting special interest money and redistributing that money in exchange for favors. We are breaking the fever now, and we should elect a speaker who's better.
And joining us live with more on this is John Misick, politics editor at masslive.com. Good morning. Good to see you. Thanks so much for joining us, John. The House of Representatives in a state of chaos, a state of paralysis after history unfolded yesterday. What was running through your mind as it happened? I'm curious.
Good morning, Lena. As you correctly point out at the beginning of this segment, we're in uncharted waters here as a nation. In covering U.S. politics, I've seen a couple of speakers resign, but I have never seen one given a no-confidence vote and ousted from office. It's important to note that in addition to being the leader of his party, the speaker is also a constitutional officer. The post is voted on by the whole of the chamber, and he is number 2 in line behind the U.S. vice president in line of succession to the presidency. So if something were ever to happen to Joe Biden or Kamala Harris, the Speaker of the House would be leading the nation. So this is no small thing. It's not merely sort of a political maneuver. It's one that has broader implications for the whole of the nation as well.
Right. So let me talk about that, because Republicans are clearly deeply divided over who could lead the House, and you felt that emotion on the floor yesterday. What does this mean for Americans and for democracy? Sure.
There's a running joke, Lena, that it takes a really smart person to be U.S. House Speaker, and everyone who's smart enough doesn't want the job. That notwithstanding has prompted House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan, Republican of Ohio, to step up to be the first announced candidate to run for the job. There's a field of potentially 8 U.S. House members. All of them hardline conservatives, all of them well to the right of Kevin McCarthy, who could well ascend to the speakership. And that's something for Americans to pay attention to, because they are aligned on spending priorities, cutting benefits to the most vulnerable Americans, cutting education spending, cutting defense spending, dialing back U.S. involvement in Ukraine. So if one of those people were to ascend, to the speakership, you could see a really pronounced shift in U.S. policies and U.S. spending. That is to say, of course, that if any of that happens in the House, it still has to get through the Senate, which is in the hands of Democrats. But you could see a lot of clash between the 2 chambers, at least in McCarthy, up until the continuing resolution vote over the weekend. Democrats saw something they could at least maybe work with, but he'd run out of chances. They had no patience for him. So it's likely Democrats will have even less patience for whomever comes after.
Right. A reminder to our viewers, this is the first time in American history a speaker has been removed from his post or her post. So no legislative business can take place until a successor is chosen. What happens next, John?
Well, supposedly Republicans are going to be huddling sometime within the next week to settle on a candidate for them to present to the whole of the House. Again, the entire chamber has to vote to elect the speaker. Right now, the only candidate, as I understand it, with enough votes to become the next leader of the chamber is the Democratic leader, Hakeem Jeffries of New York. And were that to happen, Lena, that would be an extraordinary set of circumstances where you have the leader of the minority party as the chamber's presiding officer. But all the candidates Republicans are putting forward will be sufficiently polarizing that it's unlikely that they'll get any Democratic votes when there is a vote on the floor sometime, hopefully in the next couple of weeks.
Fascinating stuff. John Misick, politics editor at masslive.com. Always good to get your perspective. Thanks so much.